Hi, Jane.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm super happy to have you here. So, we are at Monday Studio. Thank you, Wilson, for giving us the opportunity to record here. I think it looks very professional. What do you
Yes, it
think?
looks great.
Yeah?
I think
Yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
be really impactful.
Yes. So, in the context of the Start Me Up Festival
Mm,
in Hong Kong,
mm.
I'm happy to have a moment, have a chat with you. I guess your schedule must be very busy these days, right?
It's really building up to it because the Start Me
Yes.
Up Festival is next week. So you can imagine it's, a lot of the kind of last minute kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
logistics, marketing and things. So it's pretty hectic. But it's thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Let's have a moment to breathe,
Okay.
for like just a simple chat, and then we'll go back to our busy lifestyle. And yeah,
Perfect. That
yeah.
sounds good. It sounds good.
And so, Jane, you're the head of the startup department at Invest Hong Kong.
Yes.
So, Invest Hong Kong, I just asked you, it was difficult for me to describe what Invest Hong Kong is. So, maybe you can describe it so that
Sure.
I'm sure there's no mistake.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Invest Hong Kong is a government department helping overseas companies to set up here.
Mm,
And, we provide, services to any kind of overseas companies who are interested to look at Hong Kong as a potential business destination.
mm. So, the goal is really to get over people from overseas to come and basically do like business in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, it's what's called an inward foreign direct investment agency. So
Okay.
typically, you will find different governments around the world when they're hoping to attract different companies or
Mm,
talent or even money to a specific location. They have these different departments that
yeah.
really focus on these trade developments and business support.
Okay. And so, as I was saying earlier, you're the head of the startup team, the startup department.
Yep.
And for 10 years or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 10 years in
Oh,
September. The
wow.
years have
Happy
flown by.
anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you.
um, so, you help them, you help founders set up in Hong Kong and
Mhm.
expand
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
So what do you like so much about it? Because it's been 10 years. And I
Yeah.
guess from when you started and now, I mean, maybe your job is totally different or your priorities. So what makes it like you want to get up in the morning and you're eager to help founders?
I think the simplest way to look at it is just actually making a difference. That's what
Hmm.
gets me up in the mornings in this job. And it's lots of aspects about being in this role. It's actually really exciting because
Yeah.
you're talking to founders all the time who are, coming up with new ideas or, new businesses. And they tend to be incredibly passionate, and
Yeah.
of course they've got all these like ideas buzzing around in their heads. And you can't help but get caught up in that. You're talking to young founders every day who are, some of them trying to solve massive problems, or just others who are just wanting to, streamline certain processes or improve operations. But everyone has that little glint in their eye,
Mm,
that says that they really want to make a go of this.
yeah.
And for some of them, it's going to be successful, and then for some of them, that aren't. But our role here is very much to provide as much guidance about, what's
Mm,
available in Hong Kong to potentially support their business. If they're looking for potential government funding, where do they get it and things like that. So I think it's just working with, very passionate, demographic of the
yes.
community. And I think that's what makes it very
Mm,
exciting. And then when you're able to really help them and they become successful, you get a real kick out of that.
yeah. It's a lot about also human relationships.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You can't do this job and meet lots and lots of people, discuss lots and lots of business without wanting to be, um, you know, in that position where
Yeah.
you're really, interested to hear about what they're doing and, learn about where their issues are. I mean, sometimes, some of these companies come to us, some of these founders, and they've got like, big problems, and they come and, they talk about, they complain, and they're, why isn't this working? Why is this corporate treating me like
Mm,
this? And so sometimes you're just there also to be, a bit of like
mm,
a listening board, or, someone to listen to the, hey, I understand, you're having a really tough
yeah.
time. But then if you can make a difference, or you've got kind of connections that can help to resolve that, you definitely do. But other times, if it's outside of our control, it's a case of just being there and say, okay, so this kind of approach is not working. Why don't we explore another
Mm.
direction?
Recently I was talking to, maybe you know them, the founders of Funfluent. Have you heard of this company?
Fun fluid. I
Yes.
haven't, no.
So basically, they help companies, also small businesses. It's more
Right,
their target,
right,
more than startup. It's
right,
small businesses,
right.
access funding, not only like fundraised, but
Hmm.
also maybe people don't know what the government, also Hong Kong government, can do for them.
Hmm.
So basically they're here also to support. And what thing they told me is, it's little bit like what you just said, is this is also a bit of a therapy
Right.
because you help those founders navigate this, and it's not the easiest path. So
Mm-mm.
there's a lot of listening, and
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And is there a maybe one story in particular, or one person that really touched you, like you really remember, that was memorable, and you were like, oh, this company, what they're doing, I mean, all the projects may be interesting, but
Mm-mm.
is there one
Oh my
specifically?
goodness, there's always like interesting projects as and when they come up that you just think like, wow, that's like a really good
Mm,
idea.
mm,
Or sometimes you just think like, wow, that's like a really smart founder. And you
yeah,
know that whatever they're doing, whether it's this startup, or, whether they do other businesses in future, that they're going to become successful, because you just seem to have, that passion, that the kind of know-how, just deep expertise as well. So, you remember people for different reasons, and you remember
mm,
businesses for different reasons.
mm,
We've helped startups across the years, and I think probably some of them that you remember more are the ones you've probably been involved with at a very early
yeah,
stage. For some of the companies, for example, when they were really setting up, they've been, they've come up with a really good solution, and they've got different kind of mentors for them to actually build into something that's much more suitable for their particular
yeah,
market. And then they're looking for funding. And for one particular company, they are a fintech company. And the fintech company, in Hong Kong, are mostly on the B2B space, actually,
okay,
just because Hong Kong being one of the world's financial centers, we have a lot of financial institutions. But if you look at the consumer kind of side, we're still typically quite a small market. It's 7.4 million people here in Hong Kong. So, when fintech starts, they tend to go more the B2B route. But this particular fintech was a B2C company. And in terms of the products, it wasn't actually that differentiated, I guess, because what they were looking to do was to offer almost like a savings scheme, similar to what insurance companies, when you
mm,
buy like these life insurance or these kind of investment kind of products, and they tell you to save X amount of money per
mm,
month. And, hopefully by the end of X number of years,
yeah.
you're going to get this pot
So
of
what
money.
was what
Yeah.
was memorable about
I
them?
suppose this company was the fact that they were targeting a very young audience. So they're
Okay.
talking about the Gen Zs, and,
Mm,
so, the kind of mindset of the very young people
yeah,
in terms of saving is very different.
yeah,
But it's more the way they approach it. They really did their homework in terms of why you shouldn't just, use like a regular kind of, investment scheme or saving scheme. And they made it really fun and approachable that people
mm,
can, very young, can relate relate to it. They were looking for an angel investor in those early days, and we helped to connect them with a few people. They managed to get funding, and over the years, they've also had to spend quite a lot of time trying to get a license as well. They were going into a space where they needed to be licensed, actually. So that took them several years. So even though we've been helping them for a few years, they're still, just in a stage where they are getting out of the beta kind of stage,
Yeah.
and, trying to sell it to the bigger market. And it's taken several years, but you just know that the group of founders, they were really well educated, but they really had done their homework, and after several years of slog, they're still at it without really having, a sizable kind of income. And it's more the tenacity. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
definitely.
tenacity and having, the guts and the feeling that your product is going to work. And I do think they're going to become
Yeah,
successful, but it's not going to be that overnight story
yeah,
you tend
yeah.
to hear about.
Let's see. Yeah, usually we don't see when we see a successful company,
Mm.
it's just the tip of the iceberg, and we don't
Exactly.
see all
They've
the
been,
work.
they've
Yeah,
probably been
yeah, yeah,
slogging,
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah,
back
yeah.
end of that for years.
And how do you measure your impact, the
Mm.
impact you have
Mm.
in the startup department? Well, maybe in Invest Hong Kong impact, but this is like a broader impact.
Mm. Mm.
But the impact of your team, how
Mm.
do you measure that?
So at Invest Hong Kong, we do have very specific KPIs.
Okay.
We have, how many companies we've actually supported and landed them into Hong Kong. So that's, it's relatively easy to kind of measure because, sometimes they approach us when they're overseas, and from that kind of time to them actually setting up a business and launching, you've got a specific number there. So we've got, that concrete number. But also, we ask them, what are your plans in terms of hiring? How much are you intending to invest in this company, for your first year of business? And that's all collected once they've actually launched. So we've got very concrete kind of numbers as to, the direct impact our team is having. But, more on an anecdotal kind of basis, we've also been tracking the development of the startup ecosystem for the past 10 years. Like, you
Yeah.
said it
Yeah.
was very different in those days. And we've actually got the concrete numbers of startups, that have increased year by year by
Yes.
year. So, for example, compared to 2019, the number of startups we have now, the last figures was for 2023, we've seen an increase of almost about 40% in actual numbers. So we've got about just over 4,200 startups residing at the various co-work spaces, accelerators, and incubators. So you can actually measure it anecdotally, using those kind of figures. Then we can also look at how many companies have got into the accelerator programs into Hong Kong, incubation programs. And these are kind of other metrics that we can potentially look at when we're looking at specific data.
Okay, interesting. And so how concretely do you help founders, like all the founders listening to us now?
Yeah.
Maybe maybe they need help. Well, we always need help. So what would you tell them? They might not know what to do, like when to reach out to you, what exactly you could do for them or with them.
Well, the kind of customized support we provide to companies really varies depending on what stage they are, what kind of industry they're in, whether they're coming from overseas or whether they're already based in Hong Kong and they're thinking about starting a new business. If they are just floating around the ideas of things, maybe we're probably not the right partner for them at that kind of time. If they're just floating around, is this a good direction for me? Is that not? But once they've got a clearer indication about their business idea, then they want to see what kind of support is available from the Hong Kong government. Then we could potentially step in and say to them that if you are looking to do R&D in biotech, for example, then there's these types of government funding and research grants that's available, and this is how you can access it. If they are already in the process of building their software or their hardware or whatever innovative kind of products they're working on, and they're basically looking then to connect with potential clients or potential mentors or investors, then we also take a look at what they have, and we would recommend a certain direction. And if we see a good fit between some of the stakeholders that we know, like for example, the investor side, if they're interested in a very specific kind of stage and a specific industry, and we think it's a good match, then we can also make that direct
Okay.
introduction
Okay.
as well. But we really are here to support companies from all different stages. Now, I look specifically into the startup side, but at Invest Hong Kong, we also have 10 different sector teams, focus on all these different types of industries, whether we're talking about, restaurants and
Yeah.
bars
This is
to,
a pretty big industry in Hong Kong, F&B. It's
yeah,
yeah.
F&B, or,
Yeah.
if you're a retailer or you're a young designer, trying to break into the fashion market, we've got a team, a consumer products team who can help. If you are a large company and you are thinking about, okay, I've already got established operations overseas, but I want to look into the Hong Kong market, the Greater Bay Area market, or even the Greater
Yeah. Yeah.
Asia market, we've got teams that could potentially
Yeah.
support that as well.
And are there specific industries that you see growing more than others? Like obviously in Hong Kong, well, finance, fintech, tech
Mm.
are the main industries, I would say. But have you, over the years, what's the evolution of the sector? Is there maybe a specific sector that is growing more and you were not expecting this to happen?
Um, I think that the sort of like the startup development in Hong Kong, the ecosystem is pretty much on trend to a lot of locations, tech hubs around the world. Maybe I'll just step back and I'll just say like the startups for us means that there's an element of innovation in
Okay.
that, whether we're talking business model or whether we're talking about technology, and it typically is scalable and externally funded. That's sort of how we
Okay.
define a startup. Whereas for traditional SMEs, if they're starting, that's not what we're putting into the startup bucket. And in terms of the kind of industry or sectors that we're seeing more growth, you're right. Hong Kong is a financial capital. It's we've got a lot of people working in that industry, so therefore fintech is probably our biggest sector. But another sector we see a lot of development in is also on the e-commerce and logistics tech side, and that comes from the fact that Hong Kong has always been that trading hub for decades, and it's been that interface between external markets and maybe the manufacturing in mainland China.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of people with a lot of industry knowledge and expertise in logistics, and infrastructure wise, it makes e-commerce quite straightforward as well, with the mainland being the biggest e-commerce market in the world. Of course, lots of companies being based here want to tap into that, but we also see the other direction as well from the mainland. When the e-commerce companies are looking to go international, they typically set up something in Hong Kong as well, so they can get the right people on board, the right kind of marketing message, the logistics in place to actually sell overseas. So those two are, probably no-brainers kind of thing. But I think in terms of sectors we didn't really expect, COVID, it changed a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
have a
habits.
question also about
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah, yeah. So during COVID, it did change a lot of people's habits, but it created opportunities in other areas as well. So, some of the things that we saw were increases in the number of education technology companies, edtech, because you couldn't go to the school, you couldn't go to college, or you had suddenly all this free time, and you can actually, do more things with it because you didn't have to travel so much and things. So we saw a real proliferation of edtech companies, starting up in Hong Kong in the past couple of years. It'll be interesting to see what this year's figure is like, because obviously the impact of COVID is,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
hopefully behind us, whether people's habits have been maintained. So, we're looking into that as well. But also, all the wellness kind of like health
Yeah.
kind of focus,
Yes.
that
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
I mean, and that is a very natural kind of, repercussion of what we saw through COVID. People are
Yeah.
prioritizing their health more.
Yeah. Wellness. And I see also sustainability is
Mm,
becoming a big topic. There was
huge.
the Rethink event
Yeah.
lately,
Yep.
and I meet a lot of founders from very different industries.
Mm.
but you can bring this sustainability, element to, fintech or wellness or whatever. It's just also the mindset, also F&B.
Mhm.
Um, do you see that also coming? Because I think all these founders, this is also how things start, from the bottoms up,
Mm, mm, mm.
like all people like starting to realize, oh, maybe we should think about the planet, maybe there's things to do, and slowly they take actions, and then at some point also the government, is aware of that, and maybe make decisions accordingly. So do you see that sustainability element more and more?
Absolutely. Sustainability is a huge focus. And like you
Yeah.
say, it encompasses a lot of different industries. And we're seeing, substantial growth in the kind of green tech companies as well. I mean, I think that the whole push towards sustainability is a global trend. I mean, I think we all understand that, climate change is such a big issue, probably the biggest issue, of
Yes.
our
Yes. We
time.
feel it in Hong Kong. More and
Yeah.
more rain.
Yeah, well, there's
Heavy
that, and then
rains.
the heat. We
Yes.
had the
Yes.
the hottest like, Mid Autumn
Yeah.
Festival recently as well on record, and so I think there is that recognition that we're running out of time, and for
Mm,
some people who say that we've already run out of time,
mm,
but I really do believe like technology is one of those last frontiers where you can really mitigate some of these kind of effects and hopefully wind back some of those activities as well. It's one of the reasons why in the StartMeUp Hong Kong Festival
mm,
next week, we've got several events focused on sustainability. One specifically is called 1.5C. It's on next Friday. It's being organised by New World Development, and they are really focusing on different kinds of green tech that can help to make a difference. Whether we're
mm.
talking about consumer products,
Yeah.
just more
Yeah.
responsible use of resources, or whether we're talking about much bigger kind of like software and that can control how much you know energy you're
Mm,
using inside buildings or inside factories, inside your homes, and all these different types of initiatives that could
yeah.
really try and push the every man actually
Yes.
towards doing a little part towards reducing their
Mm,
carbon emissions.
mm.
So sustainability is a a big thing, and that's recognized in Hong Kong as well. Hong Kong is one of the world's green finance centers. The government has issued out a lot of different green bonds to try and fund these kind
Mm.
of sustainable projects. So I think it's recognized by government, by corporates, as well as by the average consumer
Yeah.
now as well. And hopefully collectively, if we work together, we can try and do something better.
I'm sure in a few years, like it's evolving quicker,
Mm,
like more, like faster than before. So I'm
mhm,
sure in a few years we'll see all the things put in place will,
mm,
bear fruits, and yeah, I see we'll see a difference. And back to COVID. So
mm,
we talked
mm.
about COVID.
Yes, yes.
Well, for the people who are not in Hong Kong listening
Yeah,
to this episode,
yeah,
COVID, well, was tough for everyone on this planet,
yeah,
but in Hong Kong in particular, I talked to a lot of people because I was not
yeah,
there.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just I arrived
Oh,
right after,
okay,
right
okay.
when we had to do like 3 days quarantine. So it was right at the end.
Right,
I got lucky on that, and I know it was tough.
right.
So after a few years of COVID, what has your objective changed,
Mm, mm,
or do you do things differently from before?
mm. So obviously Hong Kong's like COVID restrictions lasted, I think, a bit longer than a lot of
Yeah.
other kind of locations. So, there was several years where we basically had to, maintain a presence actually in different locations around the world. But with people not being able to come to Hong Kong because of the quarantine restrictions, for example, it was very different. Our work with then was very much trying to keep us top of mind,
Mm.
and the eyes and the hearts of founders overseas, that it's still like a good potential location for your business expansion, once these restrictions get lifted. So, we still carried on doing a StartMeUp Hong Kong festival every year. During the COVID years, we ended up, changing for the first year in 2020, we ended up like initially moving it back to later on because we didn't know how long this
Mm.
was going to last. We thought it was going to be a few months tops and
Yeah.
everything was all going to be great. So we pushed the actual physical event back. And then when it looked like that, the restrictions and the actual pandemic was getting worse, we then knew we had to do something else as well. So we ended up moving to an online event, as a lot of people did. But at that time, we were just scrambling as to what
Mm.
kind of technology you can even use. It was very little being released by that point. So, for us, it felt like we were almost doing 3 different events.
Yeah.
We like the first one that we had all planned for, and it was only like about a month before the event. And then we ended up pushing it back several months and still doing the physical event. But then we started having contingency in terms of, okay, if that doesn't happen, we need to
Mm.
put it online.
Mm.
And how do we even do that? None of the production companies really knew about how
Yeah.
you do an event of that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
scale. So,
Yeah, because
yeah.
there's a lot of participants, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were still having like tens of thousands of people
Yeah. Wow.
attending the Start Me Up Festival.
Mm.
So how do you suddenly, move all of that online when the technology wasn't there? So, lots of things. But I mean, we learned from that, and the subsequent years were easier for sure. But, we did a lot of outreach to different markets. I mean, we did so many webinars just to make sure that, we keep iterating the fact that Hong Kong still has these
Mm.
fantastic
Mm.
business opportunities, and for people to start getting ready
Mm.
for when these restrictions will lift, and they
Yeah.
will lift at
Yeah.
some point. In terms of what we're doing now, so it's been a good year and a bit, since we've had all the restrictions lifted, including the mask and things. And so for us, the past year, it has been very much getting out there, getting out into the market and telling people, there's been all these kind of new developments. The government has also put a huge amount of resources into innovation and technology. There's
Mm.
been more kind of funding and
Mm.
support than there ever has been. So it's never been a better time to actually start a business.
Yeah.
And I think in Hong Kong, we've been incredibly lucky that, our financial kind of reserves are still strong. And the fact that, our government is able to provide a lot of support,
Mm.
to really nurture this
Mm. Mm.
area. And, we also heard from the policy address yesterday, a raft of initiatives to really propel this innovation technology space. So, for startups, at some point they have to think about, an Asia kind of expansion. Hong Kong would be a
Mm.
very good
Mm.
location for
Mm.
that to basically springboard into
Mm.
the different cities and markets.
Any words about the it's the competition, I would say competition between Hong Kong and Singapore. If people listening to us,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so we're in Hong Kong
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah,
now,
yeah.
and they're hesitating. They don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's great in Singapore as
Yeah,
well.
it is. I mean, it's sort of like I think the media likes to play on this
Yeah, a
this
lot. Yeah.
competition more than actually in reality, because actually government to government,
Mm.
there's actually a lot of collaboration,
Yeah.
with Singapore. But I think each location has its own strengths and weaknesses. For us, I mean, here in Hong Kong, there are a few things that really differentiate us, and that's been part of China. That's been part of the GBA. We've got, just in the Greater Bay Area, 86 million people on our
Mm.
doorstep that you can reach out to physically in 14 minutes via the high-speed rail. I mean, it's quicker to actually go to
Yeah.
Shenzhen than it is to walk from one end of Central to another.
Yeah.
So it's, that
True.
convenience is definitely
Mm.
there. The fact that we are one of the world's financial centers, we've come number 3 again after New York and London. It just means that with that kind of, you know, that kind of accolade. Is it accolade? It's more the fact that it's a financial center. It just brings a lot of people from different locations here in Hong
Mm,
Kong.
mm,
So if you look at the founder makeup of our startup ecosystem, about a quarter of the founders come from outside of Hong Kong, and a substantial number of that actually come from Singapore.
okay.
So there's a lot of Singaporean companies when they're looking to expand to other parts
Yeah.
within Asia, their automatic response is
Yes.
to come to Hong Kong, and they want to tap into the China market or, the northern kind of Asian market,
Mm,
and vice versa.
yeah,
There's been a
exactly.
huge
Yeah.
number of like Hong Kong companies who have also expanded
Yeah.
into Singapore. So I never see it as a zero-sum
Mm,
game. I think, for startups who want to be successful and is looking to scale
mm,
internationally, they always actually
yeah.
look at those
Yeah.
two markets and decide. So it's never, at some stage it's never an either or kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I would say those two markets are quite similar in
Mm.
on many things. So I saw a lot of founders, yeah, expanding to Singapore if they're in
Hmm.
Hong Kong or vice versa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And talking about the festival, the Start Me Up Festival,
Mm.
so what can founders expect from it? Well, and I have two questions, different questions. Like the first one is what, like startup founders,
Hmm.
because this is also exactly the core audience, let's say.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I guess it's also interesting for other people to go to this
Hmm.
festival. For
Hmm.
example, myself, I
Hmm.
have this podcast, I
Hmm.
have a business, my marketing agency. So I'm always also interested in meeting other entrepreneurs, let's
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
Um, so for these two types of people, what's in it for them?
Okay. So I think for founders, they're always looking for, opportunities to network, whether it's to potentially find customers or find business partners or investors. So I think the week of events we've got happening next week really helps to address that, no matter what kind of industry that startup is in. So for example, on day one, we're working with Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund
Mm,
to launch their Jumpstarter, global startup competition, which is also focused on sustainability and AI. So, and AI and sustainability are, very, very
yeah.
pervasive and impact a lot of different industries. So a lot of companies and founders can get the kind of networks to that. If they're looking for an investor, they can go to the Rev investor reverse pitch, where investors pitch to startups as opposed to the other way around. There's going to
Oh,
be
okay.
11 investors going up on stage and saying,
Funny.
why should a startup come and work with them and look for them for
Mm,
funding versus another
mm,
investor. So that's quite a
yeah.
twist.
Yeah.
So on day two, we've got an event called Game On, focused on gaming, art, music, and entertainment. So, we're talking a little bit about the Web3, Web2 kind of interface.
Interesting.
And we've got gaming companies coming over. We're also going to be having, you
A
know,
Pokemon Go champion? Yeah, I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
that.
So he is like 16 years
Yeah.
old, and he's going to be sharing about, the kind of hoops that he jumped in order to become this world
Mm, yeah.
champion in Pokemon Go, and the kind of support they got, or just how difficult it
Mm,
was actually, that whole
yeah.
story. So
And
it's
esports in general, it's
yeah,
growing a lot.
yeah,
I met a founder. What's it called? Um, I'll find it
yeah, yeah.
later. um, Talon.
Oh,
Talon.
right, right. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Esports.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so interesting because this guy is like expanded in Asia and he really represents Asian
Yeah.
esports like champions,
Yes, yes.
and he goes with his team of champions to competition like across Asia, also Europe.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I think it's growing more and more, and it it a lot of people love that. Actually, maybe we're not the target audience, but actually I think we some people underestimate the influence of esports. So I thought it was interesting also for Start Me Up to
Mm, mm, mm.
invite this Pokemon Go champion.
Yeah, well, I think that actually esports is massive in Asia. If you talk
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the,
yeah.
for example, Animoca Brands, which is one of Hong Kong's homegrown unicorns, they've invested in hundreds of companies within the gaming side. And, mainland China is a massive, massive
Yeah,
market for gaming. And, there was all that, these headlines about the gaming company, that new game that was launched by one of, the
yeah.
mainland's studios, and it's really taken the world by storm. You've got Korea, which is also huge in terms of gaming, and Japan also. So in Hong Kong, we really are in that kind of that nexus where these different kind of people, these different kind of gamers from different locations can actually come and conglomerate as well. So I think that's going to be really interesting. On day 3, we've got an event called Louder Connect, which is going to be focused on responsible tech. I think, there's been a lot more discussion, especially since AI is becoming much more pervasive in, everyday kind of business, that, there is that concern about, okay, at what line do we draw AI? Do we need to be concerned? Do we need to come up with kind of ethical kind of responsibilities about it? So we've got an event focused on responsible technology, and AI is going to be quite a big part of that discussion. The government actually has also recently launched a digital policy office and they launched a framework for AI recently for other government departments that we hope, the main industry will also pick up as well. So it'll be interesting to see the discussions from there. We've got a health tech event happening on Thursday, which attracts founders as well as the conglomerates actually, who are into that kind of healthcare kind of space, who will be attending along with regulators and governments, really debating,
Yeah,
different
yeah.
areas about health innovations and health tech in general. And then on day 5, as I mentioned before, the sustainability event called 1.5C, really focused on climate. So I think for founders, there is an awful lot to be, to be getting on with, and to make that kind of connections, but also to be inspired by, some of the amazing things that are happening. So I think for founders, for sure, but for general kind of businesses, I think the influence of technology in every single major industry is, now it's actually something you can't avoid. It's there from, very traditional kind of business, even restaurants and things where you thought you were just
Yeah,
doing, cooking
absolutely.
your food and serving it to someone. Now you've got these, the digital menus, you've got the kind of deliveries that can
And
enhance your
apps to
reach.
book restaurants as well.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So, I think, businesses in general can't avoid that. And it's good for them to actually just understand what's happening. And then when we're talking about even more kind of advanced technologies, like Web3, like AI, I think it's good for businesses to understand what kind of use
yeah,
cases
yeah,
are
yeah.
being done in different
Yes, yeah.
organizations.
I keep saying, well, to people around me, if you don't jump on the wagon of like AI, you're going to miss something big.
Mm-mm-mm.
And then it's like people like in the past with internet, like
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who didn't, they were like, oh no, it's just young people playing around with technical stuff. I don't want to hear about it. And now, if you're not, comfortable using a laptop, wow, this is a difficult world if you're not
You're missing
it's
out
not
an
even
awful lot,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Having been involved in the whole build-up of the internet from those early days in Hong Kong, from nothing, actually, and working in that industry then, I remember so many people telling me it was a fad, and, I was working in digital agencies from the get-go, and people were saying like, no, that's not going to really last. That's not really for me. And it's, we were just trying to tell them, we were even trying to do some role play so they knew what networks were, what data
Yeah.
packets were and stuff, and getting them to pretend that they were these little data packets going along this network. Those days, thank goodness, have gone. But it's, it now is, technology is ubiquitous. It's something that is like unseen. But if you didn't have it anymore, it's just, you would
Yeah.
lose an awful lot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's supposed to make our lives easier as well. It's not
Mhm.
only like a threat
Yeah.
to, and AI, I think it's very controversial now
Mm-mm.
because you have like two teams, like the people who are AI enthusiasts and they're like, yeah, this can really help us. And the other team that is very reluctant to
Mm-hmm.
using AI, but it's true that for any kind of businesses, even for this podcast, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I use AI
Mm-hmm.
to, select the clips for social
Mm-hmm.
media.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess it's really something that people, especially people in, business owners should think about. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially the small businesses who
Yes,
think that it really doesn't impact them or can't really help them or they don't know anything about it. There's actually, like you say, all these little tools actually make life just that a little bit easier
exactly.
that they can potentially
Yeah,
leverage.
yeah. It saves time. It saves time, and we
Yeah.
know business owners are very busy,
Mm,
so
mm,
it saves
mm,
time.
mm.
Um, this brings us to the last question already.
Right.
So, what do you think founders should keep in mind when it comes to if they want to expand their business in Hong Kong? And second question, maybe if they want to expand in Asia, because
Mm-hmm.
as you were saying, a lot of founders are from overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't have any knowledge, anything. They don't know Asia. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very different world when you come from Europe or the US. So, what do you think they should keep in mind?
I think one of the things, especially if they're coming from overseas, when they're looking to work in Hong Kong, I think it's even though Hong Kong on the surface looks like a very international kind of city, we've got the common law and there's lots of like big buildings and it's very advanced. But I think the way a lot of the people work is still very much based on relationships. It's less transactional
Very true.
than a lot of other kind of places. So they do have to work at, building those kind of networks and talking to the same person a few times, without hoping to really get something concrete out of it initially. I always feel like, if you've got the time, and someone reaches out for a meeting, via LinkedIn or sometimes, people just get recommended to me and I said, okay, let's go and meet. You don't know what's going to come out of those kind of
Exactly.
meetings and being very open to it. But, also being very cognizant of founders' time. It's just like, founders when they're trying to scale or they're trying to set up a business, they've got so many different things happening in their heads that it's hard. So it's a case of prioritizing that as well. But I will say that relationships are very important, not just Hong Kong and Asia, full stop. Even though, a lot of these kind of cities seem very kind of advanced, it really is still that kind of the Asian mindset where you want to know people. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say I would highlight those kind of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I couldn't agree more
Mm,
because I see the difference. I come from France and I see the difference there. It's not same thing. It's more difficult to meet
mm,
people.
mm,
And since I'm here
mm,
having coffee with
mm,
people you don't even know,
mm.
but they're curious to meet other people and to know, okay, what's going on here in the city and on the business scene. And I think the perfect illustration of what we're saying is that we're speaking now because of that.
Yeah, we
Because
met at an event and we
yes, yeah,
chatted.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, people are very open here. So I think especially, where I grew up in the UK and, there it's a case of, if you've got like a differentiated product, it's strong and, you can definitely deliver on results. People think that, the companies, organizations will take a look at it and think, okay, I'll see whether that's relevant for me. Whereas in Hong Kong and other parts of Asia, you really do like have to, talk to those same people a few times, look at it through different kind of angles and lenses.
Yeah.
Maybe even have to talk to a few of the other kind of people around them before they'll actually try
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
So, it's a little bit more time consuming, but potentially the upside is that once you've got someone on board, they tend to be very loyal as well. And they're
exactly.
very good advocates, that word of mouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Jane. I think it was a very interesting conversation. I hope you liked it as well.
No, no, thank you for having me. It's always good to have a chat about the different things
Yeah,
happening.
yeah. Well, for the people who are listening to us or watching us,
Mm.
please go to the Start Me Up Festival. I
Mm-hmm.
think you won't be disappointed. I think it's a very good experience and a very good opportunity to meet new people and maybe have coffee later with them and start working with them. We don't know. So thank you so much. And I will add all the links and all the information about Start Me Up Festival and Invest Hong Kong in the description of the episode.
Great. Thank you so much,
Thank
Carmen.
you.